The year was 1917. The Great War had dragged America's young men to the trenches of Europe. But back home, a different kind of war effort hummed with electric energy and a silent, deadly glow. In the burgeoning industrial heartlands of New Jersey and Illinois, teenage girls and young women traded domestic monotony for the novel excitement of factory work. They were the backbone of America's industrial might, and they were painting the future, one tiny, luminous watch dial at a time. This was the era of radium, a substance so miraculous, so new, it felt less like chemistry and more like magic. Radium had captured the American imagination like no other element since gold. It was hailed as a cure-all, poured into everything from cosmetics and toothpaste to therapeutic tonics. It promised eternal youth, everlasting life, and most importantly for the war effort, the ability to make things shine in the dark. The factory at 289 Alden Street in Orange, New Jersey, home to the United States Radium Corporation, USRC, was an ordinary brick building housing an extraordinary new product, Undark. This was the trade name for their luminescent paint, a mixture of radium salt and a zinc sulfide adhesive that glowed with an eerie, soft, pale green light. In the burgeoning industrial heartlands of New Jersey and Illinois, teenage girls and young women traded domestic monotony for the novel excitement of factory work. They were the backbone of America's industrial might, and they were painting the future, one tiny luminous watch dial at a time. This was the era of radium, a substance so miraculous, so new, it felt less like chemistry and more like magic. Radium had captured the American imagination like no other element since gold. It was hailed as a cure-all, poured into everything from cosmetics and toothpaste to therapeutic tonics. It promised eternal youth, everlasting life, and most importantly for the war effort, the ability to make things shine in the dark. The factory at 289 Alden Street in Orange, New Jersey, home to the United States Radium Corporation, USRC, was an ordinary brick building housing an extraordinary new product, Undark. This was the trade name for their luminescent paint, a mixture of radium salt and a zinc sulfide adhesive that glowed with an eerie, soft, pale green light. In the factory floor, for the girls who worked there, this was a world away from the soot and grime of traditional industrial labor. It was bright, clean, and filled with a sense of patriotic purpose. Their job was to paint the tiny numbers and hands on military watch dials, ensuring that soldiers could read the time in the dark trenches of France. This wasn't just a job, it was a civilian act of war. One of these painters was Grace Fryer, barely 18, a girl with striking, serious eyes and a quiet ambition. She had earned a respectable wage, far better than the local department stores offered. When she started, the foreman, a jovial but firmly ignorant man named Arthur, had presented her with her toolkit, a small china crucible of the precious Undark powder, a tiny brush, and a stack of silver dollar-sized dials. "It's the most valuable stuff on earth, girls," he'd beam, ignoring the faint metallic scent that permeated the room. "Handle it like gold, and remember the technique. Keep that point sharp. You gotta make every stroke perfect for the boys overseas." The problem with painting fine lines was that the tiny camel hair brushes frayed quickly. To maintain the necessary precision for the minute digits, the girls developed a technique that was not just encouraged, but actively demanded by the supervisors, the lip-dip paint. Grace watched an older girl, Irene, execute it with practiced ease. Irene would dip the brush in the Undark, touch the tip to her lips to draw it to a fine point, a lip dip, and then paint the number. The radium-laden powder tasted faintly of chalk and sugar on the tongue. "Like a little kiss," Irene had winked, the faint dusting of luminescent powder around her mouth and on her fingers glowing faintly as she moved. "It makes your teeth shine when you smile in the dark." They all did it. The supervisors, the chemists, even the occasional visiting executive, all saw the ritual, the quick, reflexive lick of the brush tip. No one warned them. In fact, many were thrilled. They'd paint their nails, their eyelids, and their clothes with the shimmering dust. They would walk home from work covered in the glorious, invisible powder, literally luminous in the night, earning them the nickname the Ghost Girls from neighborhood children. They were working with pure radium, a lethal element that had a half-life of 1,600 years, and they were ingesting it with every kiss of the brush. The executives at the USRC, however, knew. They wore lead-lined aprons and used tongs when handling the raw ore. They understood the danger, yet they deliberately concealed it from the low-paid, replaceable workforce on the factory floor. They had even commissioned a study that showed the element was being excreted in the girls' urine, but they spun the findings to suggest the body was efficiently flushing out the tiny amounts. In reality, the body was mistaking the radium for calcium. It was depositing the deadly alpha emitter directly into the bones, where it would ceaselessly bombard the marrow and tissues, turning the women's very skeletons into internal radiation sources. Grace Fryer, like the rest of the Radium Girls, was unwittingly constructing her own coffin, one tiny glowing brushstroke at a time, convinced she was painting a masterpiece of patriotism and personal freedom. The light she was creating was a promise that would soon turn into a blinding, agonizing lie.
By 1927, the grim reality of the radium poisoning had become unavoidable. The illness that had started as persistent toothaches and joint pain had metastasized into horrifying, debilitating suffering. For the girls, now young women, like Grace Fryer, Catherine Schaub, and Edna Hussman, every day was a battle against a merciless enemy housed within their own bones. Jaws disintegrated, legs became so fragile they snapped under the slightest pressure, and the persistent, unbearable pain was only matched by the crushing weight of their financial ruin. The U.S. Radium Corporation, USRC, remained steadfast in its denial. Their public relations machine churned out claims that the girls were victims of a bizarre, isolated, and inexplicable affliction, or worse, that they were suffering from poor hygiene or syphilis, a vicious, career-ending libel in 1920s America. The company was literally betting on the girls dying before the case could ever come to trial. But Grace Fryer refused to lie down and surrender. "We have to fight, Catherine," Grace insisted one afternoon, her voice weak but firm, her body propped up on countless pillows in her bedroom. "If we die silent, they'll just hire the next batch of girls and tell them the same lies." It was a staggering task. Their case was unprecedented. The legal system was not equipped to handle a disease that took years to manifest, caused by a substance so new